In Slovakia, Prime Minister Robert Fico is currently hospitalized in critical condition after an assassination attempt. In Palestine, citizens rally in Ramallah to mark the 76th anniversary of the Nakba. And in Brazil, the Chamber of Deputies approved the suspension of the payment of the state of Rio Grande do Sul's debt to the Treasury for 3 years. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Wednesday, Prime Minister of Slovakia, Robert Fico, was wounded in a shooting incident. The incident that occurred during a parliamentary session, which, according to the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Lubos Blaha, has been postponed until further notice. The shooting took place in front of the local House of Culture, where Fico had gone to meet his supporters. Reports have indicated that the Prime Minister had received life-threatening shots in his abdomen. The Prime Minister was transported by helicopter to regional capital Banska Bystrica for urgent treatment. Slovak media reported that the shooter was a 71-year-old man, but the motive hasn't been clear yet. Furthermore, President-elect Peter Pellegrini cut short a foreign trip and is returning to Slovakia.
Som šokovaná. Všetci sme šokovaní.
I am shocked. We are all shocked by the terrible and vicious attack on Prime Minister Robert Fico. What has happened is something that we cannot seem to realize because we cannot comprehend it. A physical attack on the Prime Minister is, first of all, an attack on a person, but it is also an attack on democracy. Hateful rhetoric, which we can see in society, leads to hateful actions. Please stop it.
On the other hand, Lubos Blaha, Vice President of the Slovak Parliament, denounced the hate agenda promoted by the liberal media and the political opposition against the Robert Fico government that stimulated this event.
I want to condemn in the strongest possible terms what happened today in Handlova, and at the same time express my severe disgust at what you have done here in recent years. Your liberal media, the political opposition, what hatred you have spread against Robert Fico, the gallows you have built for him, that anger, that rage, that hatred that is the result of your actions today, of the progress of the entire opposition, of the liberal media. We have a lot of emotions together. Robert Fico is a 4-time prime minister, and because of your hatred, he's fighting for his life today. This is an attack of every Slovak man and every Slovak woman and every citizen of the Slovak Republic. For years you have nurtured a frightening hatred, a fearful hatred. I am convinced that the guilt that the progressive carry, the guilt that all liberal media carry, will never be washed away and will never be removed from former Prime Minister Igor Matović. It can never be removed from leader of progressive Slovakia, Michal Simeka. It can never be removed from any of them.
Regarding the attack, Michal Simeka, leader of Progressive Slovakia, one of the main opposition parties, called for a political reconciliation.
I would like to ask the political leaders to restrain themselves, as now is the time for a kind of political reconciliation. Now is not the time for escalation or attacks or with passions. I have also tried to suggest today in that special session that all the political parties that are represented in the National Council should have a joint group, a joint statement and a joint expression of solidarity towards the Prime Minister. I think that will be very appropriate at this point in time. So let me say, at least for myself, that I wish Prime Minister Fico a speedy recovery. And I want to say on behalf of all of us, on behalf of our entire political party, that we feel for his closest and also for his fellow political comrades, that really should not be the difference between the coalition and the opposition. Thank you very much, and thank you once again. Once again, I want to say that I wish the Prime Minister will get out of this as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel also condemns assassination attempt on a Slovak Prime Minister. Through his account in X, the president expressed Cuba condemns in the strongest terms the attack on the physical integrity of the Prime Minister of the Slovak Republic, Robert Fico. I convey on behalf of the Cuban people and government our solidarity and wishes for a speedy recovery. Robert Fico, Prime Minister of Slovakia, began his political career in the Communist Party shortly before the Velvet Revolution of 1989, which led to the breakup of the former Czechoslovakia. In 1999, he founded his center-left Smerc SD party after being rejected for a ministerial post by the Democratic Left. Fico stated that Russian President Vladimir Putin would not be arrested by international order if he came to Slovakia. His career over the past 3 decades has been marked by a nationalist and anti-Western vision. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. Palestinians rally in Ramallah to mark the 76th anniversary of the Nakba or catastrophe. During the 1948 war that followed Israel's creation, around 760,000 Palestinians were driven from their homes, and many took refuge in what would later become the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Sirens have gone off throughout the Palestinian cities for 76 seconds, marking the 76 years that have passed since the 1948 catastrophe. As the sirens went off in Ramallah, everyone fell silent and raised 2 fingers in the air as a sign of victory and demand of peace. While Palestinians mark 76 years since the Nakba in Gaza, over 500,000 Palestinians have been forcibly displaced in recent days amid intense Israeli attacks across the Strip. According to the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, some 450,000 Palestinians have been expelled from Rafah in the last week, following a ground operation by Israeli forces, widely criticized by the international community. Meanwhile, in the north, over 100,000 people were displaced as Israeli tanks have pushed into densely populated neighborhoods in Jabalia and met with fierce resistance.
We've gone through the Nakba not just once. We've been displaced several times. The Palestinian exile, we've experienced it not just once, but several times. In 2014, we were displaced. In 2008, we were displaced. In 2022, we were displaced. I was also a child in 1967, and the circumstances were very difficult.
The Israeli occupation army committed a new massacre on Wednesday by bombing a health center of the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Gaza Strip. In this way, 10 displaced civilians were killed and several wounded in the airstrike of the facilities of a United Nations-affiliated clinic in the Sabra neighborhood south of Gaza City. On the other hand, Israeli bombardments were also reported on the town of Jabalia and Bureish refugee camp, killing 9 civilians, including children. We remain in Palestine, where dozens of wounded civilians were transferred on Wednesday to Al-Aqsa Hospital in the city of Deir al-Balah in central Gaza, following Israeli attacks in the area. In this sense, entering the 222nd day of the Israeli genocide, health officials reported that the number of people killed has reached 35,173, most of them children and women, while more than 79,000 have been wounded. In addition, thousands of bodies remain buried under the rubble and have not yet been recovered due to the continuous siege by Israeli troops. The Commissioner General of the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, Philippe Lazzarini, condemned a new attack by Israeli extremists against the agency's facilities in the occupied Jerusalem. Through his account on the social media X, Lazzarini shared a video and denounced another arson attempt by Israeli children and teenagers at the UNRWA facility in Jerusalem. The commissioner called for a stop on this type of aggressions that the agency has been the target of in recent months, with constant attacks on its headquarters and harassment of its staff. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan described Israel as a terrorist state that could pose sooner or later a threat to other states, as it is now attacking the Palestinian people.
If this rampaging state, this terrorist state, is not stopped, they will set their sights on Anatolia sooner or later with the delusion of the promised land. Israel is not only attacking Palestinians in Gaza, it is attacking us. Hamas is defending Anatolia in Gaza. Are you so blind that you cannot see this?
The leaders of the Palestinian factions residing in Syria held a meeting in Damascus to discuss developments in the Palestinian scenario, a meeting that stressed the need to unity ranks to confront the ongoing Israeli genocidal war in the Gaza Strip. Let's see.
In the
face of the Israeli attack on Rafah, which pushed aside any chance of progress in the negotiations aimed at establishing a ceasefire in Gaza, the meeting stressed that the unified armed struggle is the best option to force the Zionist regime to stop its genocidal war against the Palestinian people.
Our Palestinian people will not stand idly by and will continue to support the Palestinian resistance, and we today as General Secretaries of all factions of the resistance affirm to act united to stop the Israeli aggression against our people, and we assure to continue the struggle until we expel the Israeli occupier from the Gaza Strip and all of Palestine.
Palestinian representatives in Syria also urged for increasing pressure to stop Washington's support for Tel Aviv, which they condemned as Republican U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham incited Israel to drop a nuclear bomb on Gaza.
We demand greater global action to stop the Israeli war of extermination in Gaza and condemn the U.S. complicity, whose President Joe Biden reaffirms through his daily statements his administration's support of this war, including the Israeli refusal to halt the attacks and accept an agreement for the exchange of prisoners and hostages.
In addition to the Palestinian meeting, Damascus further hosted a student debate forum as part of the growing worldwide university movement in condemnation of the Israeli war of extermination in Gaza.
This forum is part of the various activities taking place in different parts of the world in condemnation and repudiation of Zionist crimes, and through this meeting, we join the global effort to document these crimes and then take all perpetrators of these serious crimes against humanity to the International Court of Justice.
Syria, like the entire axis of resistance, does not give in its steadfast support for the fair Palestinian cause, a stance that, among its many manifestations, includes holding these meetings in Damascus.
teleSUR, Damascus, Syria.
Following 3 years of suspension, on Wednesday, Syrian refugees set off their return from Lebanon to their native land. The first phase of this comeback is made up of 300 families from the Arsal camps who are returning to their homes in Kalomun territories and some on the outskirts of Damascus. The returnees expressed their joy at coming back to their homeland while thanking the Lebanese state for sheltering them for almost 15 years. In that regard, the Ministry of Interior and municipalities, in collaboration with the House of Lebanon to the World Foundation, set a roadmap to regulate the legal status of the refugees and the return process. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The U.S. Department of State confirmed that it's removing Cuba from the list of countries that do not fully cooperate with anti-terrorist efforts. Washington assured that as of 2022, Cuba could no longer be classified as a non-cooperating country in the fight against terrorism, according to the Arms Export Control Law. The State Department clarified that the list of countries that fully cooperate in the fight against terrorism is completely separate from the certification of a nation that does not fully cooperate in the anti-terrorist efforts. After hearing the news, Republican Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar stated that this is a sign that the administration is paving the way to remove Cuba from the list of countries sponsoring terrorism. On Wednesday, Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez on the social media X reiterated that his country is a victim of unilateral measures imposed by the U.S. government when it associates Cuba with terrorism. In this sense, Rodriguez pointed out that the United States has just admitted what everyone knows, that the Cuban nation fully cooperates with the efforts against terrorism. Precisely, the Cuban Foreign Minister pointed out that it is necessary to stop any political manipulation of the issue and put an end to the arbitrary and unjust inclusion in the list of countries that sponsor terrorism. Brazil's Chamber of Deputies approved the suspension of the payment of the state of Rio Grande do Sul's debt to the Treasury for 3 years, following the floods that have left more than 140 people dead. The measure proposed by the government of President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva to mitigate the tremendous economic impact in the climate tragedy in the region will now be analyzed by the Senate. The executive branch defended that during the suspension, interest on the debt will not be counted either, with the aim of recovering the economic capacity of Rio Grande do Sul in the shortest possible time. With a suspension, around 10% of this amount will be destined for the reconstruction of this territory, where heavy rains have partially or totally flooded entire cities in the last 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Brazilian authorities have raised the death toll to 148. According to the latest civil defense bulletin published, the biggest climatic tragedy in the history of the southern region of Brazil has also left 124 people missing and 806 injured. 540,000 people have been displaced from their homes, and more than 440 municipalities have been affected by the disaster. As part of the work carried out, the Brazilian government set up a field hospital in which around 20,000 professionals from the region are working. In addition, more than 81,000 people have been accommodated in shelters.
The biggest challenge is to coordinate the whole team here. We work only with volunteers in the Red Cross, with several sectors, several services, with the dog, the children's part, the whole health administration, the hygiene of the environment. There are many people in activity. There are 200 volunteers. So this is the biggest challenge, but it is a great satisfaction to help people in this moment of suffering.
In the United States, thousands of people were affected as tornadoes hit the state of Louisiana. Authorities report that a tornado led to a fatal victim nearby the town of Henderson. The U.S. National Weather Service indicated that the disaster follows one of the most active periods of tornadoes in the country's history, confirming an estimated of 267 occurrences since April 25th. Meanwhile, local media and citizens posted several videos on social media showing the damage caused by the incident, including smashed structures and downed trees and grids. In eastern Indonesia, the Mount Ibu volcano erupted for the second time this week, spewing a column of smoke and ash of some 5,000 meters into the sky. The Indonesian Center for Volcanology and Geological Hazard Mitigation reported that the volcano located on the island of Halmahera erupted on Monday afternoon following a small occurrence over the weekend. The country, located along the Ring of Fire, a series of seismic fault lines around the Pacific Ocean, has 120 active volcanoes. In this instance, while no damage or casualties were reported, authorities recommended the population to avoid the area, with the institute also encouraging the use of masks and goggles for people going outdoors in locations close to the Ibu. Let's go now to the sports world, where with the Olympic Games approaching, Canada has secured its first 3 swimming qualifiers for Paris 2024. 17-year-old Summer McIntosh became the first swimmer to earn a ticket from the northern nation after winning the Olympic qualifiers with a world record 3 minutes 59 seconds and 600th in the 400s freestyle. Meanwhile, swimmers Maggie McNeil and Mary-Sophie Harvey qualified in 100 meters butterfly. During the qualifiers, McNeil improved her time and took the victory in 56 seconds and 61 hundredths, while Harvey recorded a lifetime best of 57 seconds and 32 hundredths. In the Hungarian city of Debrecen, the pre-Olympic 3.3 basketball tournament will be held from May 16th to 19th. The tournament will offer 3 male and 3 female quotas to Paris 2024. Each gender will have 16 participating teams divided into 4 groups. The first 2 will advance to the quarterfinals. The winners of the semifinals will get a ticket to the Olympic Games, while the runner-ups will have one more chance in the match for 3rd place. In the women's section, Germany is the top seed and the favorite to win in one of the quotas, while Chile stands out in Group B among the Latin powers. In the men's section, Lithuania is the favorite in Group A, while Puerto Rico in the AmeriCup champion team is one of the favorites in Group B. On Wednesday, 11 Brazilian football clubs requested the suspension of the league due to the tragedy caused by the floods in Rio Grande do Sul. Out of the 20 clubs that make up the first division of the Brazilian Championship, 11 clubs asked for a temporary suspension until May 31st due to the floods. In this sense, they argued that stopping the competition is a necessary and fair humanitarian measure. Precisely, President of the Confederation Ednaldo Rodriguez had previously admitted the possibility of the suspension due to the climatic catastrophe that has mostly devastated the south of Brazil, and previously decided to postpone matches this month for teams residing in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, which is the most affected area. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.